I'm Pio Vincenzo. I'm the co-host and co-founder of The Nifty. We do a morning show Monday through Friday on Twitter on trading NFTs, market discussion, just discussing the stories of the NFT market from a financial perspective. Nick is my co-founder. I'll let him introduce himself, and then we can introduce these wonderful speakers.
I'm Nick. I'm Pio's co-founder. We're building big things. No, we have a show each morning. I got into the NFT space beginning of last year. Was starting with content and then collecting, and went all in on collecting, trading, and still content.
Absolutely. Do you guys want to introduce yourselves?
Sure. My name is Joseph Wilcox. I'm the co-founder of Lydian Stater, which is a contemporary / crypto art gallery here in New York City. We have a physical space in Long Island City, and we put on exhibitions with artists, a lot of times from the traditional art space, who are making NFTs for the first time. And so we just opened our, I think, 6th exhibition since we started about a year ago on Tuesday, and it's called Post-Industrial Digital Dysmorphia. And so I think our presence on this panel here is to offer some insight into the kind of traditional art market versus kind of the current iteration of the crypto market. And this is my partner in the gallery, Alexandro Silver.
Alexandro Silver, and co-founder of Lydian Stater. We also have a podcast called Arranging Tangerines, and that's intersection of art, technology, and
Commerce.
Hi, everyone. I'm Gabriel. I'm from Alt.XYZ. I'm the head of crypto there. So Alt.XYZ we're trying to make the modern bank for collectibles. So, for example, you've heard stories of people having $1 million Pokemon card collections, sneakers, watches, and the only way they can get liquidity is they have to sell it. And so that's where we come in, where we can help custody the assets, provide insurance. We can also give you loans on it. And so our latest project that we just actually released for GA this past Tuesday is Alt Mint, where we took 400 cards that we sourced and we're putting them on the blockchain. So now people can get physical assets with their Web3 liquidity.
Very nice. You guys said something really interesting. You're talking about the traditional art market and your presence here kind of representing that. I'm wondering, are there any examples of short time horizon trading in the traditional art market? He handed me a Pokemon card as soon as we got here. That falls more under collectibles, and I think that would be a good example. But I'd love to know, in the fine art market, are there examples like that?
I think the answer would be no, but I'm glad you asked that question. I mean, the traditional art market operates on a much longer timetable than the crypto market. And so actually some of the kind of things that I think we're interested in is, what pros and cons are there to a market that, if we're talking about buying a work and expecting it to go up in value and then selling it, what happens when that happens every month or 2 months, or what happens when it happens every 3 or 5 years? And so I can't think of an example in the traditional art market where somebody buys a painting and they flip it
15 minutes
15 minutes after it drops, right?
Yeah. Well, you have to redefine time, and the art market's very slow. So Kenny Schechter, I don't know if you know who Kenny Schechter is. So he
did several drops on Nifty Gateway.
Exactly.
Crypto Mutts.
So when he started in the traditional art market in the 80s, he was a flipper. But a flipper in the traditional art market is 3 to 5 years. So that's I guess the equivalent of 15 minutes in the crypto sphere.
15 minutes might be a little long. Nick, it looked like you wanted to add something to that?
No, I was going to say, what's the shortest trade that you made? And I was going to offer up one, just on art. I remember Art Blocks doing flipping the exact same project 3 times in a row during just a short-term thing, eventually losing money, but making money on the way up. But that was literally over the course of minutes. It was just going up and making. But anyways, I was curious if anyone has examples of their dumbest or shortest term trade that they made.
No, but I do have an interesting story about the shortened time horizons when things go digital. Because at Alt.XYZ, before we started this Web3 thing, we actually had a traditional marketplace where we digitized cards with a central database. And what we noticed was during the NBA finals, people were flipping player cards in response to the performance. So like, oh no, Giannis made a bucket. Let me sell a card. Someone would buy it. Giannis
Physical collectibles, like physical.
yeah, physical
cards.
collectibles. But the difference is on our platform, you didn't have to ship the card to anyone anymore. So it's kind of like on the blockchain. And so what would happen is like you could see this instant flipping, almost reactionary to players' performance.
I mean, that's definitely pretty wild. And as Web3 develops more, you're going to see more and more platforms that actually custody the physical artwork, custody physical collectibles. You know, there's a company out there called Block Bar where you can buy, you know, fine wine and spirits, and they actually custody them for you in a temperature-controlled facility. If you want exposure to that asset class, but you don't want to actually physically hold a $10,000 bottle of whiskey, you know, they'll actually help you out with that by custodying it, and then you can trade the NFT on a short time horizon. You know, if you're bullish on a particular bottle of wine, it's a world I'm not familiar with, but it's definitely out there. And all these things are opening up because of Web3. You know, coming from the fine art world, have you guys traded NFTs, or what is your sort of exposure to the NFT game?
I mean, so in general, like the NFTs I collect, it's because I like the artwork and I like the artist and I want to support their practice. And so the only times that I've sold an NFT that was an artwork was because I got it like for free at some point, and I didn't actually seek it out. And then I noticed that it had gone up in value, and then I was like, well, I got airdropped this piece. I don't actually need it or want it, and so I'll sell it. But yeah, outside of that, I mean, the reason I purchase artwork is to have it and to support the artist practice, and it's not necessarily about investment in making money first. It's investment in kind of like an asset that like I value the content of. And I think Art Blocks is a really interesting example because, you know, they kind of ran into a problem that they grew really fast and the quality deteriorated pretty significantly.
Yeah, they oversaturated it, which was the exact same thing that Flow had experienced with CryptoKitties, and a bunch of other things, or a bunch of other collections are running into the same issue right now. It's like, oh, well, we need to get more people, and they're assuming that their primary sales is like one of their main revenue drivers, or by issuing more tokens. It just never, I haven't seen it like work pretty much at all. I bought some of these lovely planets from Pixel Vault, and I spent like thousands of dollars on these things. They're worth basically nothing right now, and I feel pretty positive about that. And that's all thanks to them just increasing the supply indefinitely, which I was thought was absolutely ludicrous. And I was right, but I decided to throw money at it anyways. So that was not great.
Call us crazy, but our tact is very slow and steady. We believe that there is a big future for crypto art with the traditional art space, and we've been taking our time, and whether educating and onboarding traditional artists into the space, releasing these projects not as drops, just they're kind of like open series, and we're kind of like we'd like for people to collect, so the pricing is low. So yeah, we're taking a very long-term approach to this particular space. We think there's a big future.
Hey, I got a random observation for you. If I speak, this guy pans the camera for the video very slowly, one person at a time. So if we just talk back and forth, he'll be forced to move the camera horizontally the entire time. So, now
He just adjusted, actually.
Oh, you shouldn't have said anything.
He picked up on that.
Damn it.
But I do think what you were saying, right? It gets oversaturated and the quality declines, and that's like we care about quality. So most of our collectors,
Almost there, buddy.
most of our
I'll
collectors
fill in the gap.
are they're interested in making some money long term because they believe in an artist practice, but they also like want to invest in artworks that they like. And we're of the mindset that flip culture is not necessarily conducive to the art practice of traditional artists. And so I'm curious because like, and also the stuff we show isn't really flippable. It's like not cool enough to be flippable. And so I just wonder if it's also not necessarily good for the crypto market, right? To have these projects that crash so frequently, like as a whole. And I'm wondering as kind of like guys who are very invested in this space, what do you think about that in terms of the whole ecosystem?
Yeah, I mean, I think that liquidity is the most important thing when you're looking at a market. And what you just talked about, you mentioned like, not cool enough to be flipped. the way that I perceive that is no liquidity, no interest in somebody buying it on the secondary market. And you'll hear a lot of experienced NFT market participants making reference to the idea that they wouldn't own any fine art projects, for example, had they not made profits off of collectibles or other types of NFTs that they traded before, where they earn these profits, and then they end up rolling those into a fine art project. And our biggest thing, if we're looking at a potential project, something that's interesting in the market, is you have to look at the volume, you have to look at the liquidity, and also keep in mind, every time an NFT changes hands, one of the brilliant advancements of the technology is the royalty, and that's something people will reference a lot of times, because in the fine art world, once the primary sale is done, the artist isn't getting residual, revenue, no royalty off of the sale. So my thing is, like, as long as there's volume, it doesn't matter if it's fine art, doesn't matter if it's a collectible. At the end of the day, that can be something in a healthy market. And those are the things that we really look at when we look at evaluating whether a project is notable. I don't know if you guys have anything to add.
So I think currently when we talk about liquidity, right, the main form of liquidity is just buying and selling. I think as NFTs grow, as like you get more money entering the space, you're already starting to see a lot of like NFT lending protocols come up. And so sure, maybe you're not able to sell it at the price you bought at, but you can probably collateralize it and get a loan for a much lower value. Because if someone's going to sell it for 50% off, then they can at least call the loan if you default on it, right? So I think that's going to change how people approach flipping potentially when you get more liquidity options.
There's also artists that like structure their existence around selling. Justin Irisonic, I mean, he's a diamond in the rough. It's a hard example and hard act to follow. But when he was selling his project, he got into the hands of people and then immediately was having them trade essentially and getting other people to buy it, because that's how he was making money. Made all of his money using that approach, and then eventually had a Christie's auction. But leading up to that moment, he was just printing money by getting other people to buy that project. So I feel like that is a subset of the art market. The traditional art market, I mean, you can go on Artsy, and I've seen people who minted the physical Damien Hirst that just what came out last year, and no one's buying it. Like, literally, there's no liquidity on it. But you go to the Damien Hirst on OpenSea, and there's just constant speculation, activity on it. And is that bad? I don't think so. Like there's a lot of traditional art people that view it as a net negative for it, and I think the net negative that people view is when people lose money. And the concept is that in order to make money in this space, other people need to lose money in the space. And that's often true in many cases, that there are people that take wild bets. But I also view some of those people as making potentially longer-term bets of saying, like, oh, we're going to collect all of this art and bet on it for a long period of time in a market that rewards short-term trading. We won't know the answer to this for like a period of time, what ends up actually being the most profitable approach. But for now, you do see a lot of crazy profits on short-term speculation. And frankly, the entire crypto market was kind of built on that. So it's kind of hard to like avoid that.
Wait, I got a quick question on that, because you did mention that the difference between a traditional art market and these NFTs is that the NFTs provide secondary royalties to the creators and the people who made these projects, right? So whether the price goes up or down, as long as it's moving, these people are making money. You think that motivates these artists to kind of just always be in the spotlight, cause media drama, maybe just to start moving their pieces, whether it's up or down?
You're describing our business. So if you're trying to understand, you don't want to tune into all the spaces that we host, because some of it's just like very questionable. But legitimately, like, our whole community like has half loyalty to us. It's sort of a weird community to build when you have someone who just cares about the flip. But we're all good with it, because if you end up leaving, we make money. If you come, we make money. And so whatever the price is, up, down, doesn't really make a difference. I mean, as long as it's not zero, there's money to be generated. Obviously, you want to do something which drives enough value that makes people perceive the value of that to be higher. Otherwise, you're just not going to make as much money. But that's always been the artist's job, right? Or I guess you could say their manager or something like that, to try and develop this perceived value of that particular artist. So I don't see it having. I feel like you are correct, yes, but If it's some high end, that's just the case. If you look at all the high end things, like I think of some of the more expensive art blocks. I'm blanking on the name that blew up last year, but the top one, Fidenzas, those don't have very much liquidity in it. But when they do make a sale, it's like 50 ETH, 100 ETH, something like that, and then that artist gets paid whatever royalty it is on art blocks, 5%, 7.5%, which is a decent amount. So they don't need that many trades. So I think when it's cheaper, that's when you need more volume. When it's more expensive, you can then go for a longer period of time. But yeah, it's difficult to say. I mean, I just think it is a thing. Like it's just the market. Like there's subsegments of the market which have like a ton of trading, and then there's subsegments that don't.
Yeah, I got another follow-up question for that, because right now when we look at the NFT market, majority of it's like PFPs or one-of-ones, like visual digital artwork, right? But when we go back to technology, like the technology, NFT is actually just a container, and it can be anything, right? So you have like Royal, which is doing more like music royalties. You have like Zed, which is like video game assets, right? And I think as these other NFT asset classes mature and get bigger, do you think the flipping strategy changes?
I think it depends on what direction things go in, but the bottom line is that royalty is going to be there, that digital scarcity is going to be there, and that verified ownership is going to be there. And when I listen to you all speak, I can tell that there's a lot that's being framed, through the kind of fine art lens, and that seems to be the world that you guys come from. And I think that that's one vertical of NFTs. But he just mentioned gaming. He mentioned PFPs, in other words, collectibles. All these different verticals are going to settle down, and I think a lot of people that are in the gaming space can agree that video games is a really natural ecosystem for NFTs to be properly plugged into, and we just flat out have not seen proper kind of maturity in the NFT video gaming sector. We've seen some runs up like Axie Infinity, and then violent explosions where you don't even know if the thing's going to survive. Right now, the big one, Other Deed by Bored Ape Yacht Club by Yuga Labs. That's the big one that people are speculating will be good, but we still haven't actually seen what is going to come of it. So I think as we see how these things mature, as we figure out what blockchains they're going to be on, we'll figure out whether the current state of the NFT market is going to exist in the way that it does. All I know is when I look at the volume charts from last year, it feels pretty euphoric. It feels pretty Tulip Mania, 2001.com bubble. To me, when you kind of look at the prices of some of these assets, $450,000 Bored Apes, and Other Deeds being $100,000 if they had codas on them that very first night when nobody knew what they were. So I think a lot of things are going to shake out. And right now, we're in the throes of really a bear market, and we're probably not done with it yet. And we're probably like 6 months away from even being close to done with it. But you're still seeing these isolated pumps and these flights to quality to things like CryptoPunks, for example, which were a free claim 4 years ago, and hit an all-time high of like $400,000 themselves. And now people are kind of turning back to them. Nick just bought one for $96,000 the other day.
No, it was less than that, but yeah, thanks.
Congrats.
Thank you.
Yeah,
But
we'll figure out
We'll
later
see.
if it's a congratulations moment.
there was one other. I mean, as a whole, like we like doing short-term flipping for comedy, basically. But I actually think it's an awful strategy. Like as a whole, by and large, all the stuff that I've made money on, I've just like bought and held, and then it appreciated. But there would have been no way of knowing in this market that we're in particular that like Bored Ape Yacht Club at the beginning, outside of the initial hype that was going on online, you couldn't have said that's going to surpass. You could say it, but you didn't know with definitiveness that like this is the next big thing. And so I to answer what you're saying, as it enters into new places, I think it will go towards a flight to quality, and then also simultaneously overall reduction in the average price of all of these different things, because it is wildly unreasonable.
I can tell you one thing that might help this particular market would be, instead of minting on, say, Ethereum, you would mint on a stablecoin, because it's hard to convince a traditional art collector to spend like 2 ETH on a project when the 2 ETH is worth whatever it is now versus what it's worth at its all-time high. It's a psychological barrier that's very hard to kind of bridge. If and when you would be able to mint, I mean, I know you can mint on the stable coin, but if
You mean like pricing an asset in USDC, for example,
Exactly.
versus Ethereum.
So
yeah.
now that the price of the artwork actually stays stable and you see a steady rise or a steady fall or a steady whatever, as opposed to having it going up and down depending on what the actual coin is going through at the moment.
I mean, I was gonna say, I think a lot of NFT traders kind of partially wish that it wasn't. Although there's two cohorts, but I feel like there's one cohort where the name of the game is collect more Ethereum, and that's you're an Ethereum maxi, and so you can take a USD loss, write that off, and then still collect more Ethereum right now. And we're seeing trades like that. But I think a large portion of people would actually prefer USD-based trading, although the psychology behind that is a little more different, right? Because you're buying it for 100, whatever it is, in this case Ethereum, versus 100,000 US dollars, which like just in general doesn't feel very comfortable.
It hurts.
Magic internet money, right?
I mean, I feel like most people pretend that they love the decentralization aspect, but stablecoins wouldn't exist if they really did, right? They wouldn't have even made them, and that's definitely something we don't price our stuff in stablecoins because we mostly mint on Tezos right now, and there isn't a good stablecoin to do it. But we do change our prices depending on how the price of the coin is, and kind of tie it to USD, which has been helpful for both the collectors and for artists. Because a lot of the artists that we onboard are not super familiar with the space, and so they don't necessarily they get that the price fluctuates on certain coins, but they don't really get it. They don't know that like once we give them X amount of Ethereum, it's tied to this market, and so I think that's something we'll see in the future a little bit is more stablecoin trading on at least art NFTs.
Yeah, that's interesting. Do you guys watch the Sotheby's Constitution auction? You remember like that DAO? And like the Constitution DAO, and they had raised a certain amount of Ethereum, which translates to a certain amount of USD. But during the course of the auction, the Ethereum kept fluctuating. That it kind of changed what their budget was in the middle of the auction. So to that point, I do think that's where you see like probably for auctions, probably US stablecoins are going to become the winning factor.
Yeah, when you talk about that, I mean, think about how bad people just got wrecked. Like everything pulled back on the crypto side, and then NFTs pulled back with it. So you have these assets that are being priced in an asset that's going down. That's how you get that 90% capitulation that everybody talks about during the bull market, but no one expects. And then when it comes, that's exactly how it happens. You guys mentioned that you're on Tezos. I'd say Tezos at this point is probably it's realistically a top 5, maybe a top 4 or top 3 blockchain for NFTs, specifically for fine art NFTs or artist focused NFTs. There's a little bit of collectibles action on there. There's a project called Dogami that has some solid backing by Ubisoft, but other than that, it's all about the art. Do you feel like Tezos will continue maturing as an art focused blockchain, or do you see a shift to other chains for the fine art market?
I mean, we're kind of betting on it because that's where we're sending our artists, and that's where we're doing most of our minting. The Tezos Foundation is dumping a lot of money into the fine art market, and they sponsored Art Basel last year. They had a big exhibition this year. And so that's also part of it is like, are these chains even going to exist in 5 or 10 years, which is how long we kind of expect some of our collectors to hold their NFTs, is a 3 to 5 to 10 year kind of model. And so I think it's definitely too early to tell, but I like Tezos. I think it's they've been doing a lot of good stuff with developers and with projects and platforms, and just the community around it is very art centric. And so, but I think Polygon is also a really good bet, and Ethereum isn't going away.
And we hosted the TIA people recently. They had a little party at our space on Tuesday. That was fun to see. It's a very ground up. It's nice to see that there's not a lot of speculation. Minting cost is really cheap. The ecology for the blockchain is low as far as the impact. So we do like it, but I do.
Instead of like 95% speculation, it's like 80% on Tezos instead.
I was going to ask. So, the secondary market is alive, though, right?
Correct. It is alive.
There's an Art Blocks like equivalent platform there, right?
FX Hash, and
Yeah.
that's like they're blowing up right now, and there's really cool stuff happening. We just went to an event yesterday, and like I think half of the people hadn't heard of FX Hash yet because it was on Tezos. And they started looking at the content that was on there and like, oh, this is good, right? And so it's Art Blocks style stuff that's really good content that's kind of happening under the radar still.
And thinking long term, even if Tezos goes away, there is possibilities of wrapping whatever NFT is into something, whatever the next blockchain is. So we're confident that the work will still exist in some form or another. We love the fact that, say, we convince a high-end artist, a blue-chip artist, to do an NFT project with us, and let's just say it's the only NFT project they ever do. First and foremost, that's an interesting thing that they only did one NFT project. Secondly, they keep working in their traditional art market. You have this collectible that will never happen again. So we like that concept.
Yeah, and Marina Abramovich just minted her first video on Tezos, and she's like a powerhouse in the contemporary art world. So I think there's like signifiers like that are showing where the contemporary art market is focusing on their NFT stuff.
Yeah, I mean, on Tezos, you can get pieces by artists like Pop Wonder, and they're priced at a much, more affordable price point than on Ethereum. And I think a big part of that is just the level of adoption of Ethereum versus Tezos. But those that are in the know, like our in-house artist, for example, he's got a bunch of stuff on Tezos, both as a creator, but as a collector. It's kind of the art chain, and the true art collectors are definitely around there. But like you said, it can totally, anything that's on there can just be wrapped if Tezos ends up, not being the preferred blockchain for a long period of time. I'm curious. We're friendly with the folks over at Cosimo de Medici Group, and I've been fascinated by the way that they approach their collecting. Right, they will buy the one of ones for $1 million. They will buy fine art pieces that they expect to hold for 5 to 10 years. But they also do participate in the collectibles side of the shop. They bought our NFT. I watch the wallet and I see the other NFTs that they buy, and I have actually seen them sell too. And when you think about it, since the group's only been around for like a year or something like that, that's not the time horizon that you're talking about. And they're really operating as like a traditional style collector with a long-term time horizon. Do you think that we'll see more hybrids like that, where there's the fine art collecting by a group or by an entity with that long time horizon, but they do participate in the other parts of the market and book profits?
Yeah, I mean, I think that makes total sense, especially if you're paying attention to which artists, are good for short-term sales and which ones are going to last a little bit longer. And that's like, diversifying your investment portfolio, especially if you're focused on more of just the making money side of the thing, right? Instead of buying stuff that you might put on a digital frame in your home and kind of live with. I think that makes a lot of sense.
And also the maturity of the smart contract itself, with the inclusion of like artist rights, like, and spelling out of what can be done with whatever the NFT is, like how it should be displayed. Once those kind of things kind of start getting together, where you, like a museums are kind of apprehensive of acquiring some art because they're like, what can we do with the NFT? If you start spelling out, well, you can show the NFT alongside blah, blah, blah. You can show it on a screen that's this dimension by this dimension. Once those things start getting spelled out, it'll bring comfort to the collectors that are actually acquiring the asset.
So this panel, I think, what is it called?
NFT Degeneracy.
Something to fortune.
Yeah.
So how do we make that cash? Like right now, there's like a minute and a half. Like, what's the fast track for this audience to just start printing some money?
HODL.
What's that?
HODL.
Okay, that's not fast money. What's like the fast cash? I'm not trying to wait here. I'm trying to like print some money, flipping NFTs. Is that even possible?
I mean, not in the stuff we sell. No, I mean you can print it in 10 years. Yeah, but yeah, I think that we're like the wrong people to ask that. I mean, I could give offers of artists who are doing stuff like that. But yeah, I think that might be more for your guys' morning show.
No,
I think you're right.
I do think so. I do think you're going to see more innovative ARB opportunities on NFTs. So, for example, the NFTs that we're making, if the NFT is not moving, then you can just redeem it for physical asset and sell it on eBay. So that has a natural ARB where the NFT price can't fall below a certain point. So I think you're going to see, not like that's from bring physical items to the digital world, but I think you're going to see other NFT projects where maybe you can eject from Ethereum, go to Solana all of a sudden if it's not moving on Ethereum. So I think we should be on the lookout for more projects that go cross-chain and allow natural ARB opportunities.
There was one project. Do you remember what that was, Pia? That someone came on and was like, "Yo, cross-train's the way. It's on like 5 different things," and we all like bought into it and lost all of our money.
Yeah. It was.
Yeah, which one?
Well, we lose our money on every NFT that we buy. I think it was Omni-Chain Mosquitoes.
Oh, that's what it was.
In case you guys missed it, it was Omni-Chain Mosquitoes. Okay?
I'm sure the community's taking over though, and they're going to bring it back. You know, it's going to rise back up.
Oh yeah, it's CCO, so the people that founded it don't have to do anything. So yeah, don't worry about it.
Very bullish.
Nick, we're at time. If you are in the audience, what would you recommend the audience buy right now to make money by tomorrow? Let's make him a couple of bucks.
Some of my worst NFTs. I would say would be the one I'm
Just
looking
go to
for.
Nick's account and buy something he
go to his
wasn't able to
wallet.
sell for 6 months.
Cryptoverse Spike. That's what I've been pumping. I literally like tried to pump. No one was interested. They just looked at it like, no, I don't have anything for tomorrow.
All right, well, we're at time.
Oh, we actually do. What was that bull? What was the free mint we did yesterday?
Bulls and apes.
Bulls and apes.
Oh, wait,
I'm
no.
not guaranteeing this is any.
It wasn't that.
And this
I'm
isn't financial
wrong.
advice either.
Well, Pio's the financial advisor here. So
Guys, you know that you can go to jail for financial advice.
We're
you know
not
that?
making any
You're
financial
coming
I
with
have
us.
no financial advice.
no, I know that's why Pio's a financial advisor for NFTs. He loves
I'm on the
advising you
books.
on what to buy.
He's my financial
What was
advisor,
that
actually.
that
Yeah.
people should buy, Pio, with their money right now? Bulls and apes?
Whatever you're
Okay,
selling.
Perfect.
You can change this how to
Excellent.
talk, right? You can put not financial advice.
Yeah, you bet. I'll
He's
say
like
that for
scared,
you guys.
like legitimately scared right now.
No,
Like,
no,
take
I'll
your
just say
money,
it for
put
you
it in
guys.
bulls and apes. All your cash, you're gonna want to put it in there.
We got a legal team. We're good.
Anyway, buy more.
Thanks for
NF-
listening. Oh, we got a minute and 40. They want
Oh,
more. Here we go. Now we're talking.
You got more. Yeah, there you go.
What type of extension is that?
know,
1
minute
minute.
Like, after like 0 for like 30
okay, You have
seconds.
a minute and a half.
Stretch.
Maybe we can tell everybody where to find us.
Yeah,
Oh,
absolutely.
there
go
you
ahead.
go.
We're lydianstater.co. .com is too much money right now. And we're Lydian Stater on Twitter, Lydian Stater NYC, and we have a physical space in Long Island City if you're New York local. Our current exhibition is open this weekend, tomorrow and Saturday, 12 to 5, with curator Carlos Franco, who's maybe in the house.
Maybe.
Yeah, right there.
Woo!
Yeah, he doesn't want to.
And we have a podcast, Arranging Tangerines, as well.
Raging Tangerines, all right?
Cool. You can find me on Twitter at Gakho, Gakho, and I work for alt.xyz. Only the Twitter handle is only it's alt.xyz official. Sorry, we had a rebrand. That's why they're laughing.
My Twitter account's allnick, ALLNICK.
Pio.eth on Twitter.
That's not your Twitter account. It's Pio Vincenzo _.
Yeah, it's easier to find me that way,
Pio
though.
Vincenzo _.
We do the morning show 9 to 10:30 Eastern time. If you guys are on the West Coast, wake up early and figure out how to lose money first thing in the morning while you're pouring your coffee. And thanks for listening, everybody. I guess that minute 40 was a necessary stretch. We'll see you guys next time.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
Give them a big hand, guys.